out of this art on the right hand side comes this mirror image from Steve Meads, and at his website Chauvet Dreams there is a description from an African professor who claims this is Zep Tepi, the first time in ancient Egypt. It's the birth of the first Egyptian god. The lionesses are the watchers, and the Mutitjulu waterhole, the water line would create a reflection in the water, exactly the same as this image. The breasts reflect as the buttocks. The waterway would reflect as the rock. And the rest of these characters are all to be found within a few miles of Uluru. We'll look at those presently. Right above the cave on the surface is the Pont D'Arc, which is a moon bridge, and it's also a deer. There's the ear and the eye. Standing in water, making a reflection. And on the backside is a horse with a broken ear. And on the inside we have the deer standing in water. The horse's head that has dropped an ear. We can see this round or square shape in here, facing downwards. And down here we have two deer in a contra reflection, and where the mirror would be is this bird shape, and the bird is kind of humorously grabbing hold of the deer's mouth and annoying him. There's a dolphin looking knowingly, and it might be imagination, but I see the deer was trying to look in a mirror. When Steve Meads put a mirror image on this one, he was able to come up with this, showing the left and the right faces of the horse and the front view as well, which has regained its ears. So the horse is becoming spatially present. Below is the bird taking flight, and above we also have a bird taking flight. Looking at the belly, these are the wings, these are the feet, and this is the beak looking down at the other bird. Here's the tail. Over in the womb there is a horse, which at first looks to be the mother giving birth, but actually the birth comes out the back, which means this is the head end of the mother. There is also a cut, blood, possibly water pouring out, and the mother is breathing in and breathing out the same substance. So there is a circular flow going through here. And there's the legs of a newborn baby in the womb. Possibly umbilical cord. The Aboriginal shaman has a symbol on him which appears in Spanish caves of around the same period as Chauvet. It's also in Australian caves and is one of the very first symbols recorded. It is likely to be along the lines of an earthly plane with heaven and earth, complementary opposites reverting to each other as unions across a centre pole. And this same type of philosophy is occurring, it would seem, in the Pont D'Arc, with material and non-material and reflections in water. I suggest we also have boomerangs, which are sacred objects that also turn up in Egypt. They fly and return, just as migrating birds fly and return north to south. There's people migrating north to south. South to north. And horses are present on the horse panel. They are the most realistic depictions in the cave, with a lot of body present, so they have necks and bodies, and going back even through further to the right than I've shown, there's even more horse shown. In Australia, underneath the L and the curve, there is a bear shown on the wall that when I looked in exactly the same area on Google Earth, there is a massive geoglyph of a bear's head with a lot of detail. In India, the bison is standing, which it only does for one reason. On Google Earth, we can see the bump, the horns, just as shown, and Sri Lanka joined to India as it was during the last ice age. On the Tibetan Plateau, western side of India, are these shapes running up to the plateau. On the plateau are mountain ranges, the Kunlun Mountains, and a wide open mouth, pointed nose, and an eye. In another part of the cave is this creature on the left, which a paper was done on recently, suggesting that it's a volcano. They enhanced these parts of the image and compared it to plumes, showing that it's all very accurate. And looking at this part, by spinning it, we can see a volcano's flame and smoke. But notice it looks very much like a barb, because it's Lake Toba in Sumatra. Above the lake, there's an ear, eyes, mouth, and pointed chin. There's some other characters up here. This rhinoceros has a horn that seems to be passing through, but in actual fact this is a face. There's an eye and a nostril of this man's nose. It's the top of his head and neck, wide open mouth. And looking at the lake we can see the eye and the nose and the wide open mouth. This bison has moved across here now. He's in 3 dimensions as well on the 2 planes there, kind of connecting these 2 areas together. This circle the shape of the lake, and this one is there. You can keep looking, you'll find lots of matching features. The Wallace Line is an area of ocean, which is deep trenches. The animals of Australia remain indigenous because of this. There are 2 ways out, the top way and the bottom way. And the top one comes onto this island and then gets to Sulawesi, and the bottom way is onto Timor. We have them both. Here is Sulawesi. Next stop to Sunda, the massive Sunda plate, really nicely shown here. And this horse is Sulawesi. Comes down, along and down. From the Philippines, along and down. Then there are 2 legs. And then this shaped bay. Then there is this small bay in this larger bay. Small bay, large bay. On the main part of Sulawesi here, we find this horse. There is an eye in here, and there is the eye. So the rest is the lines on there. But this is a horsey shape. Coming from the front leg, there are some islands which seem to match. Especially the last one has a nice matching shape. I wanted to show you what's in between Timor, New Guinea and Sulawesi. A whole bunch of beautiful islands through there. This area has Timor, but also doubles as Arnhem Land in the Gulf of Carpentaria, because in here is what was called Lake Carpentaria back in the day of Sahul. Some of these features are found in there. The overall shape is correct, and if we look at the light blue ocean bed, we can see there's a gap through, so that is what made a sailing route to get onto these islands and go north. So that's coming out onto the islands above Timor. And so Timor here. First thing to notice is this index finger and thumb pointed downwards, like it's grabbing on to these finger holes. Timor is actually in this area, and it's also here, repeated, because from the west coast of Australia across the Timor Sea to this line, and then there is Timor there, Ocean Ridge. A lot of the features are matching across here. I'm not going to go through them. You can stop and check. And this shape of the spear coming up like that. This was seen, visualized as a spear, and with a woomera. That is a spear thrower. Help you throw your spear long and fast. It has a hook to join on the bottom of your spear. Here is the bay. This area hooks around like that. The trunk comes around this way and here. In the north part of the country is this, well, these bull's horns, and we find this bull. So I turned it so that you can see it well, and this mountain range continues back all the way to the north. It even looks like it has ears here, and a couple more features, depressions that are in there. So Timor is a spear, probably with a woomera attached, and is the beginning of that chain of islands going north. We'll have a look at all of that in a next episode, showing islands all the way up to the Andamans. Between mainland Australia and Timor is the Timor Sea, and below the surface is an incredible reef system, which we have a bathymetric chart now showing all the features. Some of the oldest pictorial art in the world comes from Sulawesi. It's the same age as Chauvet, 35 to 38,000 years. This one was well studied and reproduced, and is a map of the Timor Sea. Looking at the red areas and how they join on here, and the fingers become the features, the tail and the head, and also even these heavily dotted areas out here and the white and dark patches match up to some of the islands or islets off that south end of Timor. There's an eye and an ear directly below the first leg of the animal, which does not join to the animal. That's why there's a gap. This little feature is the white that you can see. These lines I went through and found these in the reef system here. So the body of the animal comes through here. And this one is shown, and inside here, what looks like a running woman. Here it is. And a little grainy, but she's in here. There's leg. There's the head. This one hasn't been dated, but they say it's in the same cave and comes from the same time. Very complex. And a map of the same area. I'm not going to go through it all, but here is our triangular sea with the gap through. All these red parts are parts of the island and reef system. We can even see the horns of the bull back in. I've gone through the whole thing. You can stop it and have a look. This part was interesting. An elephant trunk and shape, which is in there. This part goes through to a ridge at the bottom of the leg. So that is this part going through to this ridge. Even older in Arnhem Land is this incredible rock shelter. It's been excavated out and these columns have been added and moved around. Absolutely incredible. No doubt dangerous feat. 50,000 years old. It's so high you can stand and walk around in there. There's seats to look at all the art that is painted on the ceiling. I wanted you to see the man with the elongated chin. And there's another guy in here that I mentioned before. He's got the eye lower than the right eye. It's a flat-headed. He's got a scar and a small ear. These guys will pop up again and again. They seem to be representing the ancestral and the modern humans. Modern humans have a steep forehead and a higher forehead and a stronger prominent chin. Archaic or ancestral have little chin, flatter heads, and a skull shape that sweeps back. These are archaic features on Homo sapiens in Australia. And we also have a skull on the Australia in stone. Up in the top corner, which would correspond to the frontal lobe, is this guy with a flat head and would seem like a missing tooth. That may be his tongue showing. A knocked out front tooth is an initiation rite to Aboriginal Australian. And this is looking like it's covered in water and it has lines through it which seem to suggest that this is sitting in water and that is reflecting with that. These are reflections. There's also a hand, index finger, thumb there, and it's holding this object. This is the region of Uluru. To the north is a large lake, Lake Amadeus. Here is Uluru. Across is Katajuta. And then there is another range just nearby to the west, which I have not been able to discover its name. But here it is on Google Earth. And we're going to look in at this area first. There is a whole lot of lines coming through, which then turn into the Rocky Range. And it's this, the overall shape. It's the cats. They're in here, cat's eyes, and there's this eye. As well. A lot of matching features through those two pictures. And now we're going to look directly below this. And we find the man with the elongated chin. Here they've taken the eye and moved it into the picture from there, but really there's an eye there. There's a very small, thin eye. So that's where they got the pupil. The best way to look at this is to begin from this corner and match everything up. You can see these areas with the ear. There's this line coming through. Here is a small gap over to the lion's mouth. Here is a gap to another lion's mouth. The line of the eye. Here is the nostrils. Grimace. Some lines here to verify what we're looking at. That's about 9 miles, maybe 15 miles from Uluru. Here is the flat-headed guy. It's got a straight line. go to scar. This is Catajuta, and the cat's paw comes through right underneath it on the right angle. Then there's a nose, a triangle, and a mouth, and they are all in here. And the mouth is sort of this area. The small ear is there with an eye. And a sad face. And then up in here, we're going to find the big ear. So it's interesting, there's a repeat of this portion of the face, the eye with the scar. There's that line coming through on an angle. There's this line coming through, goes right through the scar, which is here. And then here is a man face up with a large eye, an arrow pointing down the mouth of the lion. There's also a small face with hair and a small eye. His nose is going into the same arrow. Here is the arrow head. Here is the shaft. Comes back to the lion's mouth. At the end of the arrow is this shape, which is there, meaning we have the eye and the line behind the eye. In here we have the hair and forehead shape of that guy. So the lion, this is the lion's mouth and the nose. So let me know if I've got anything wrong, and let me know if you find anything. And I hope you're enjoying the information.